Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. In today's video, we are going to be talking about copper and nickel because there's a lot going on in the world that is affecting the price of these important commodities. There's a lot of interesting price action right now in the market for physical commodities such as copper and nickel. Copper, for example, is now trading at an all-time high. So we're going to be covering all of that. And this video is actually a viewer request. Viewer Copper Brass left a comment the other day on one of my videos asking that I do an updated video on copper. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. We're going to cover a lot of information, a lot of what's going on in the world right now, what's going on with the prices of these important metals. And by the way, guys, if there's anything you would like to see me do a video on, please do leave me a comment down below. I read all of the comments on these videos. I really like to communicate with you guys that way. I usually will try to respond to as many of the comments as I can. And if there's something that you would like to see me do a video on, and I think that I can deliver some information and deliver some value for everybody watching, I will do my best to make that happen. So if there's anything you'd like to see, let me know in the comments below. And that being said, let's get to it. Alright, so if you guys have been watching the channel for a while, you might have seen last March I did a video on stacking copper and nickel bullion. And at that time, the value of a US nickel coin was about 5.4 cents. That's the melt value of the metal contained in that coin. And for those of you who don't know, a US nickel contains 25% nickel and 75% copper by weight. Now, as of today, that same nickel coin contains about 7.6 cents worth of metal. So that is a pretty significant increase, and it's a pretty significant value over the face value of that coin. Essentially what that means is if you go and you buy one of these $100 boxes of nickels, so this is the bank box that you get. If you go to the bank and you ask for nickels, that's probably what they're going to give you. If you buy one of those boxes, you're getting $150 worth of metal or more, a little bit over that actually. So to me, that's just mind-boggling. And we're going into the weekend here. On Monday, I might hit up the bank and see if I can get some more of these nickel coins, because to me, when you can buy physical bullion of any kind at a 50% discount to its melt value, I mean, that's a screaming deal. I'm kind of kicking myself for not buying more nickels back in March of 2021 when I made that first video. But, the thing about nickels is they're a little bit difficult to store. My family doesn't usually give me a hard time about stacking silver, but when I start telling my wife I have to rearrange the furniture to make room for my nickels, that's a little bit more difficult conversation. But for anybody out there stacking who has some extra storage room, or who maybe is stacking on a budget and just wants to get the best deal on physical bullion that is available at the moment, I do think nickels are not a bad option. So let's talk a little bit about the price action that we've been seeing in copper and nickel. So copper now is trading at about $4.78 a pound. That is an all-time high price. So we can take a look at the long-term chart and you can see that copper is now putting in all-time highs. Nickel also moving up considerably. You can take a look at the 1-year chart for nickel here, and you can see that it is moving up quite rapidly as well. If we take a look at the long-term chart of nickel, you can see that it hasn't quite reached all-time highs. The price of nickel was higher in 2011, and the all-time high was back in 2007. But the thing that chart tells me, that long-term chart, is really that nickel still has a lot of room to move upward, because things are a lot different now than they were back in 2007. There's a lot more fiat currency that's been created. There's a lot more debt in the system, and the industrial demand for nickel is moving up because nickel is a critical component in electric vehicle batteries. So there are new industrial uses for nickel that are coming online and that is stimulating demand. And then, of course, the real factor that is causing this spike in metals prices right now at this very moment is the geopolitical instability that we're seeing over in Eastern Europe, and also the economic warfare that's being waged in the form of sanctions. Now, why would economic sanctions have such a significant impact on nickel? Well, There's a company, Norilsk Nickel, based in Russia, and they are the largest producer of refined nickel in the world. They make about 7% of the world's supply of nickel. So the fact that they are basically out of the game at the moment due to economic sanctions is going to cause a significant move up in the price of nickel, because we already have a tight supply. We can take a look here at this chart of the warehouse levels of nickel, and you can see that it has been steadily declining, and that is corresponding to the move up in price. And now that a good chunk of nickel production has been taken off of the market, we are, I believe, going to see the price move even higher. If you want to see a metal that is moving a lot higher as a result of the sanctions, all you have to do is look at palladium. Palladium now over $3,000 after the trading action of the past couple days. And that is just absolutely remarkable. But the thing about palladium, Norilsk Nickel is also the world's largest producer of palladium. So a big chunk of the world's palladium supply just went off of the market as well. So to that end, those metals are both going to be heading significantly higher. Now, what about copper? Well, Russia produces about 3.5% of world copper supply. So the same can really be said of copper as what's going on with nickel and palladium, although maybe to a lesser extent because it is a smaller portion of world production. But like I mentioned, we are seeing the price of copper trading at all-time highs now. Nickel is spiking up. And I mentioned that a nickel coin contains about 7.6 cents worth of metal at this point. Well, an old copper penny, so if you've got pennies from before 1982, these pennies contain over 3 cents worth of metal at this point with the inflation that we've seen in the price of copper. So to the extent that you can get your hands on these old pennies, these are an instant 300% return when you get one of these for face value. So definitely I'm going to continue saving my copper pennies. The thing about that is, though, if you want to get these in bulk, there's a lot of zinc pennies in circulation too, so you got to be picking through them and pulling out individual coins from your change or from rolls of pennies. So it's very time consuming, and unless you have one of those penny sorting machines, it's probably not going to be the most efficient endeavor for you. Now, copper bullion like this bar, this is one thing I would probably steer clear of when you're trying to get some physical copper bullion. They are really cool. I mean, I have this 1-2 kilo bar, which I do like quite a bit. I think it's neat. It's something every stacker maybe should get one of. Make a nice doorstop or a paperweight or something. You don't have to be too careful with it since it's just a scrap copper bar. It's not too pretty, but it is cool. But when you buy these, you're paying a lot more than the current spot price. Typically, you're paying a significant markup. So that's generally something I steer clear of, because the deal on copper pennies and on nickels at the moment is just so much better. Remember, the nickel is 75% copper. So one of the cool things about that coin is you're getting exposure to both metals. And, like I was mentioning earlier, I am probably going to go try and get some more nickels. Who knows if they're even going to be available. I know that nickels can be kind of a difficult thing to store because these boxes are not light. They're not small. Maybe you can weigh down a safe with them or something like that. Or, if you've got extra storage, you can just stack them up in a fairly compact space. But moving them around and everything, you're going to break a sweat. But if you are a stacker who is on a budget and you have some savings in cash, say, well, I don't see any reason that you might not just take a couple $100 bills down to the bank and get a couple boxes of nickels, because it's really no different than keeping an emergency fund in cash. I mean, these nickels are legal tender. You can take them out and spend the rolls if you want to. Each one of these boxes is just full of rolls of nickels, and you can take these out. Each one is worth $2, and you could spend it in a pinch. But the nice thing is that clearly the metal in those coins is serving as a hedge against inflation. And keep in mind that every time you go and you buy one of these $100 boxes of nickels from the bank for $100, you're getting over $150 worth of metal. Now, some people will say, hey, it's illegal to melt down pennies and nickels. It is technically illegal at the moment to melt down those two coins. But I suspect that, more than likely, we're not going to have these coins circulating for that much longer, because inflation is clearly going to make having any kind of metal coinage totally inefficient. Canada hasn't had a penny for years now. So I think the life of the penny and the nickel coin are certainly limited. I mean, maybe they'll be replaced with like a plastic token or something like that. I could see that perhaps moving forward, but I don't think they're going to be minting these for much longer when the metal that goes into each 5 cent coin is going to cost over 7.5 cents. I'm sure that there's additional manufacturing costs in there too for the mint. So it's probably costing them 8-9 cents to make each one of those coins. I don't think they're going to be doing that for much longer. Hopefully I'll still be able to get some nickels. With the spike up we're seeing in metals, I wouldn't be surprised if some other people are getting the same idea. So, we'll probably get to one of those situations where the banks just don't have the nickels anymore. I really do think that that will be the case in the relatively near future. But right now, nickel coins, the fact that you can buy them at such a discount to their melt value is just such a screaming deal. Think about it. If people were out there selling, silver coins for face value, how many would you buy? I don't know about you. I'd mortgage my house just to go buy as many coins at face value as I could. Now, that's obviously a no-brainer because the silver is, tremendously more valuable than the face value. And of course, none of this is financial advice, not suggesting anybody mortgage their house, not suggesting you run out and buy a bunch of nickels, not suggesting anything. I'm just kind of giving you my thoughts on the matter. But nickel coins, when you can get $150 worth of metal for $100, it's hard to say no to that deal. So I am going to run out and try and get some more of those. Now, another thing you might see is copper scrap. I know there's weirdos like me who like to collect wire and strip it and just have as much metal on hand as possible. I got this nice ball of metal wire. Well, funny story. A couple weeks ago, I needed to hang up a picture on the wall, and I didn't have any wire to hang the photo with. But then I remembered, I have all sorts of wire. So I used some copper wire to hang up a painting in my house. Just another benefit of being a stacker who keeps scrap copper around. But the reason I'm bringing the scrap copper out today really is not because, I'm suggesting you guys invest in scrap copper or that you even stack it necessarily. It's kind of fun to have some wire and stuff, I guess, but you really need a lot of this stuff to add up to any value, and it doesn't store that well. It's kind of irregular, whatever. Maybe if you're into backyard smelting or something, you can collect this stuff and make bars. But the reason I'm showing you this, guys, is because in an environment like we're entering into where we're facing significant inflation and the prices of metals are moving up drastically, to the extent that you have anything made of copper around your house, you really need to be vigilant about that. I've mentioned in the past that I have some family that lives in Venezuela and that has lived through the hyperinflation there over the past decade. One of the things that some of them have faced is theft. So I have one family member who lives there who runs a boarding house. She has a big house, and so she has a big air conditioning unit for this big boarding house that she runs. And after the hyperinflation there started, someone came by with a truck and some tools, and they stole her air conditioning unit, presumably for the copper content, because an air conditioner has a fair amount of copper. And as the Bolivar tanked, the price of the metal skyrocketed in Bolivar, so it became an appealing target for thieves. Well, she got a new unit installed, and on the new one, she had a big cage put over the top. And then about a week later, somebody came by and they cut the cage off with, I guess, an angle grinder or something, and then they took the new AC unit too. So she did since get a new unit, I believe, and she has some kind of extreme enhanced protection cage over it, which people haven't been able to cut through yet. But my point is that, if you start seeing the price of metal spike up much higher than this, you need to be vigilant about theft, and you need to look out for metal theft, because if the price on metals keeps running up the way it is, my forecast is that we will see a lot more of that. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I think that the price of nickel and copper is probably going to continue to move higher, especially if this instability, this warfare in Eastern Europe and in Ukraine is prolonged and it continues on. I do think that we will see the price of metals move much higher, especially as global supply chains continue to be disrupted, as these sanctions and economic warfare escalate. This sort of thing is going to continue to be the norm. We saw a big move up in gold and silver and oil today too, and I think we'll continue to see more of that as well. So what are you guys doing? Let me know in the comments below. Are you stacking nickels? I'd love to hear what you guys think. What do you think the best copper and nickel investments are at the moment? My bet is on plain old nickel coins. I think that that really is the best way to go, but I would love to hear what you guys think. And again, if you have any ideas or thoughts for future videos that you'd like to see from me, please let me know in the comments below. That's actually super helpful to give me ideas like that I know you guys actually want to see, so I encourage that, and I am very appreciative to Copper Brass for leaving me that comment the other day, so shout out to Copper Brass. Thanks a lot, man. If you guys like this video and you'd like to see more like it, then do check out the videos that are popping up on your screen right now. Thank you all very much for watching. I will catch you next time. Happy stacking, everyone. Smart Silver Stacker, out.